We pledge to say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Heartfelt and passionate.
Thought-provoking, provocative and controversial.
Fearless and truthful.
Welcome to The Pledge, the show committed to passionate and fearless debate. This week, Jeremy Corbyn took the Labour Party conference by storm, or perhaps more a steady drizzle. And among the many highlights was a book of poems his supporters published in honour of their leader. My personal favourite? Well, the one catchily called Tell Me Lies About the Austerity Plan. It's based on the Hokey Cokey and includes the lines, you put your ballot paper in, you take your new membership right out, you take an honest leader and try to shake him all about. I'm having it read at my memorial service. This week, Greg says the whole system has to change, and he's not talking about the FA. Well, not yet. Michelle wants to tell us about her eggs. I've got a feeling that June's going to ask me more awkward questions about my private life, and Rachel compares Donald Trump to a Disney character. But first, me. Played one, won one, and a right one. Sam Allardyce exits the role of England manager with an unbeaten professional record in the job, but with a reputation in tatters. While actually guilty of no crime as such, his apparent eagerness to help bend the rules concerning player transfers in return for bundles of cash has shamed the national game. While he deserves all the blame coming his way, shouldn't as much of the fans' fury be directed at the oafs who appointed him just 67 days ago? The man recently appointed to run the Football Association, Martin Glenn, is the former boss of United Biscuits. Excuse me, but just why does the bloke who used to be responsible for the manufacture of hobnobs, mini cheddars and penguins oversee the selection of someone who plays such an integral role in the heart of our nation's sporting aspirations? It's unlikely we'd put Roy Hodgson in charge of the Milk Marketing Board, isn't it? So let's hold to account the people who authorised Mr Allardyce's eye-watering £3 million annual salary and subsequent £1 million payoff. Otherwise, this tawdry saga simply takes the biscuit.
That's a typical piece of isn't it, really? When you
Tell me where there's anything that's wrong.
It is. Well, what the thing is, well, first of all, attacking Martin Glenn. Martin Glenn is a very good executive. He's got appointed to run the FA. You don't think he went out and asked... He and others who were doing that, who were looking for the New England manager, asked a lot of people, did a lot of consultation, came to the conclusion of a small list, and then the guy got the job. Mm-hmm. That's what you do in any profession.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You've run the FA, right?
Yeah.
I've done some research on the FA. Justify this for me. The last year for which accounts are available, year ending July 2014, the FA had turnover of £332 million, profit of £5 million.
But it's...
Any other business, you wouldn't run a media group like that, you wouldn't run a supermarket like that. This is ridiculous.
It's not a profit and loss company.
Dead right it's not.
It's a company, it's an organisation that gives money to grassroots football.
Gives money to grassroots football. Let's have a look at another statistic. Since the year 2000, a collection of half-beat, half-dead Herberts and dumbwits who've managed the team, we've paid north of £50 million to people such as Sven-Goran Eriksson, Steve McCram, Fabio Capello, £16 million over 4 years. What did he get us? Nothing, just some funny press conferences. How do you guys keep getting away with it?
Well, because that's what... If you look at what managers in the Premier League get... I mean, to be fair, Sam Allardyce came for this job at considerably less than he was getting from Sunderland. So,
it might be
I mean, that's the market.
Can we explain who funds the FA? Just because I don't really know.
And
I'm not sure that you say we've paid Fabio Capello.
Well, you know, the broadcasting rights and other things.
Yeah, the bulk of the FA's money comes from the FA Cup and broadcasting rights and the England internationals. That's where the money comes from. It comes into the FA. By and large, the bulk of it goes out to grassroots football.
So it's not public money?
It's not public.
So then what's your point?
Well, not only is it not public money, it's an unfair characterisation of saying it should be making big profits. When I was there...
Either profits or success.
No, when I was there, we saved... I decided that we should save £30 million that was being spent on certain things so we could spend more out on the grassroots and spend more on the England team setup. And that's
Was
what we did.
was it on your watch that we went from paying the manager £650,000 to £2 million?
No. My watch started. Roy was already there, had a contract.
OK, so that was £3.5 million
But in
a year.
the end, if you're going to get a good manager who's been in the Premier League, that's the sort of money you
I can't believe
pay.
you're saying this, Greg.
That's
you
the
mean
sort
you
of
wouldn't
money
do
you
it
pay.
for 300,000?
No, they wouldn't.
Well,
Really? I don't see people rushing to hire our ex-England managers.
Greg, the jury's out on whether Sam Allardyce was a good appointment. Let's be honest about it.
That's
what comes back to my point with the bloke who makes mini cheddars and hobnobs being in charge of the committee. If you look at sport where we are successful, do you remember that? Successful, because Christ knows we've never had it in football. Where we are successful, like rugby, we have people who've actually played the game. Rob Andrew, Clive Woodward.
We got knocked out of the Rugby World Cup at the preliminary round
their watch,
last year.
and we're the second best team in the world at the moment, second only to New Zealand after our victories down in Australia where we won all 3 tests. Rugby, success. One last thing, Michelle, then you, I promise. Cricket, we've got Andrew Strauss in there, probably the third best team in the world. Football, the thing you used to be in charge of, a bloke who makes bloody biscuits.
No, he's the chief
absurd.
He's the chief executive
he's the
of
boss.
the organisation.
So can you help us understand this? Because maybe everyone already knows and I don't, but how do you do that? What is this hiring process? So how does this guy that runs a biscuit factory become this £3.5 million?
No, he's not.
No, he only gets £650,000.
So, right.
£650,000 to appoint another bloody Herbert who's no good. There's no other game in the
but
world.
Nick, there are lots of companies where most corporations... but most corporations at the senior level, it's about somebody who has experience, not necessarily experience in that field.
What's he done?
He's
made
got
a disastrous
experience of running a major
He's made an appointment.
international
He's made an
company.
appointment who they thought was the best man for the job at the time.
And there
As you
was a
say,
lot of
he's played
public
one game and won, so
pressure
actually it's
for
not a bad record.
Allardyce.
What happened this
A
week...
last-minute goal against Slovakia
But
that
what
went off the
happened this-
referee's arse.
So-
Do go on.
But what happened this week? I thought the FA did quite well, because actually they looked at it, said, this is not tenable. We can't carry on with this. This will run and run and run. There'll be also... this man's got to go. So he was... I mean, he's resigned, but he's resigned...
a glorious day.
So we have to be very careful here, but it is well known that he was the subject of a BBC investigation. He was subsequently cleared. This is Sam Allardyce, an investigation that was chaired by Lord Stevens, former Commissioner of the Met. So let's get all that out there. But wouldn't it make sense to do background checks on someone who holds such a prominent position?
Of course, background checks are
So
done,
they failed their background checks as well.
Should you appoint people... or not appoint people on the basis of innuendo, on the basis of gossip, on the basis of rumour?
No, you investigate.
You wouldn't get a job, would you?
I've lost jobs for that reason.
Greg, obviously it was a Telegraph that did the investigation. Do you think that the FA should have been actually investigating themselves?
Well,
Yes,
how
they
could the FA have done it? I mean,
Is that what
it's not an organisation.
No, but the FA needs to be... I hate this expression, root and branch, but just get rid of them. They cost a bloody fortune, and by any measure, Greg, it's not working.
What would you
by
replace
any
them?
measure.
The story that is around this week is about corruption across... I mean, I actually thought it was quite... Today's revelations in the Telegraph actually quite disappointing, as was the second day. I mean, there are 7 managers taking bungs, but we don't name them. Well,
I know. There's obviously a problem.
Been told this by some rather dodgy agent himself. I mean, if you want to really get into the scandal in football, it's about agents.
Right.
Greg,
I mean,
think as you're here...
And actually,
Greg.
the FA doesn't have control of agents because it's an international business now. FIFA almost given up on trying to control agents. But
They've had their own
real questions are to be asked about agents, how much they're taking for the
Did you
transfers.
do anything about agents when you were at the FA?
We tried. but
why
actually,
are you finding it so hard to reform this organisation?
Because it's
why did you leave?
Well, hang on, I left because my time was up. But actually, I don't think agents can be controlled in one country, because we no longer work that way. I mean, the major thing that was going on with Allardyce is about players coming from Latin America who are not owned by clubs, they're owned by individuals. Now, the FA took a lead and banned that, along with the Premier League, and now FIFA has banned it, and then you've got Mr Allardyce explaining how you can get past it, and that's why he had to go.
But by any level, I come back to this point, Greg, and I do like you as a bloke, and I know you're not there now, but honestly... it's hopeless over there. England football has not achieved anything for decades. They are the highest-paid managers in the world. Yeah. I mean, how anybody sanctioned giving Capello £4 million a year? As I recall, I think we went out in round 2. We haven't performed. England hasn't performed to anything
but
like
Nick,
it.
what would you replace
how do you get
it
away
with?
with
It's not
it?
all Greg's fault.
Well, he's the nearest I can get. Unfortunately, the biscuit guy's busy with his penguins.
And
there's a million,
What's his fault until July?
and there's loads of fans out there like Nick, uninformed, who just, completely uninformed, just say, I mean, the trouble with columnists and journalists and the rest, actually, is they've never run anything.
But what do you do all day? If you're running the FA, what do you do all day?
It's
But
quite
what would you
complicated
replace it with?
It's actually,
no, but Nick,
it's actually
what would you
quite-
replace it with?
It's actually quite a complicated organisation because there's all sorts of bits. They are not. I mean, the Premier League and the Football League are much more in control of the clubs than the FA
Yeah,
are.
I get that.
The real issue about agents is, and this is about, this is really about bribery and agents. The real issue is, will the clubs do anything about it?
But with the £3 million that they had to pay to, was it Sunderland is where they got Mr Allardyce from, is that right? Was it Sunderland they took him from? Right, £3 million there, the £1 million to pay him off. Why they didn't just sack him for being the company to distribute?
Hang on, do you know all this?
Yes, I've read it in the paper.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
I read it in the paper.
You have no idea what they paid.
£75,000 a day to just about snatch a last-minute win against Slovakia.
But
is that money well spent?
Would you judge? I mean, if you...
I would, yes, because it's a results business.
You judge on one game.
We're in result business. My radio show is in a results business.
No, because
Telly is in a results business.
in your radio show, which I have heard at times, not many, thank God, but I have heard... I mean, you have good days and bad days. Well, that happens in football.
I couldn't have, what is it, 96, 50 bloody years of bad days, could I? Which is what England football's had. Well, I know it's not all on your watch.
I'm not sure that's true. And actually, English football, you can say what you like about it, but it has built the Premier League, which is the world.
That doesn't help the
which is now the world.
team.
You're talking about the national team and not English football. Well, there's a real problem because we've now got the richest league in the world. Because we've got the richest league in the world, they can bring anybody in from anywhere, which means kids can't get through anymore. There's a real shortage of players to actually choose, English players to choose from. And I did a commission into that and what you can do about it. But of course, nobody wants to change anything really. I agree with you.
It's another great way of spending the money is we'll have a commission. We'll
Nick,
get old Chilcott. We'll appoint Chilcott. We'll be there 20 years later.
I chaired the commission. It didn't cost anything.
Can I read out my favourite...
I'd hate you to get confused with what you read in the paper.
Greg, I think you would take $3 million to run the England team.
Dead
But
right.
my favourite thing on Twitter, before I hand you both a yellow card, is for somebody who tweeted, Sam Allardyce is a disgrace and needs to be punished, humiliated and made an example of. Therefore, he should stay on. Right. I think it's time that we put the ball in the back of the net because, to me, there's no contest. On the one hand, you have an experienced legislator and politician who's served her country for 40 years. On the other, you have a casino operator, stroke property developer, turned reality TV star who's never held office, a showman and a charlatan, a billionaire who, by his own admission, thinks it's smart not to pay his taxes. The idea of President Trump is not just post-truth, it's post-funny. In this week's debate, he was called out for lying time after time.
Donald thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. I think it's real.
I did not.
Science is real.
I do not say that.
Someone who has said pregnancy is an inconvenience to employers, who has said
that. I did not support the war in Iraq.
Even though we all know he's lying, a man who commands the small screen can still become commander-in-chief. Let's keep box office and ballot box apart. Otherwise, this is no longer serious politics, people. It's reality TV. Unless America wakes up in the next 40 days, none of us will be able to switch him off for the next 4 years.
First of all, I don't have a problem with people making leaps from screens. No, of course I have a problem with lies, but I don't have a problem with people making leaps from screens into politics.
Well, you would say that, wouldn't you?
I would say that. But also, you've seen it with Schwarzenegger, for example. I know, obviously, he's not the president of the US, but he's someone that I admire and respect. He's put himself to various different careers and always smashed it as being the best at what he does and did great while he was in politics. Reagan, the same. So I have no problem with people going from screen into politics, no issues. I think that a lot of people, they're disillusioned with politicians at the moment. They don't feel like they look like them, sound like them, and rightly or wrongly, they want people that do. And the problem that you've got with someone like Trump, it's soundbite politics. It's making statements that don't always stack up, but people resonate with what he's saying. And then on the point of lies, I think it's appalling that politicians lie. They do it everywhere, Rachel. You know, and I don't want to get personal or anything, but one could argue about the Brexit thing and the 350 million.
Please, let's not
it
do
goes
Brexit.
on. No, but my point is, it goes on right across the countries, and I think it's outrageous. I've said this before. Politicians shouldn't be able to stand up and tell lies when they're campaigning. It should be governed, and there should be consequences when that happens. But there aren't those consequences, hence they do it, and hence they get away with it.
Greg, do you think that he actually believes his own lies and therefore in some post-factual way he doesn't think he's lying?
He's the barroom bore, isn't he? Really, is what he is. He's the bloke who sits in the corner, knows about everything, doesn't bother with the facts, a bit like you, Nick.
Yeah, I knew you were looking
doesn't bother with trying to find out the facts, just makes assertions.
And has a radio show.
And doesn't even remember what he said before.
No,
so actually...
But also doesn't matter to him.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the scary bit is...
That is scary.
That gets him at least 40% of the vote.
I know.
And it's really scary.
So we've got to a point in politics where somebody can become almost president simply on the grounds of being good on television and lying through his teeth and people not caring.
But you can't... You go back to the Brexit, and I say, no, you don't want to go back to Brexit. But when Michael Gove said, we don't want to know what experts, basically said, we don't want to know about facts. Yeah. We don't want to know about the real things. We only want to know, what we believe.
What we want to hear.
And this guy, as I say, he's like something outside of politics. He's not from politics. And he just makes assertions about anything.
But I think this is very worrying, that we can have a post-factual politics and a roster of people who think they can take office simply by dint of saying things on television, appealing to people's worst instincts, rather than look at Hillary or the rank and file and the grassroots who've actually met people, held office, been councillors.
As this has been a ceaseless love letter to Hillary Clinton, led by you, Rachel Johnson. Perhaps we can take a look at the most recent research from the New York Times and see... Oh, what research? You don't like research? Sorry about that.
Well,
I thought
actually,
Greg
the New
and I
York
agreed.
Times is so on message with Hillary.
New York Times and CBS, where it comes to the message of trust, or indeed untrustworthiness. And here we are. Hillary Clinton actually is more untrustworthy than Donald Trump. 63%. 63. So what do you think an election is?
What I'm saying is, this is people they've polled.
63%. Let me get the numbers out there. 63 plays 60%. So this. I mean, it's almost like some girl crush you've got on Hillary Clinton.
Nick, for one exciting moment, I thought you were going to have some real facts. All you've got is a
poll that shows
that Trump's working.
Oh boy, here you go. And well done to you. You have a lovely metropolitan London lifestyle. You mix with all your friends in Notting Hill. It's sensational. You are not sitting in the Midwest.
You.
I thought you went to the same
you.
You go to the same thing she goes to.
You go to all the same places she goes to.
I only go as her driver.
No.
I only go as her driver to pick her up at the end of the night.
I'm not going to interrupt you while you're making a fool of yourself.
You are not sitting in the middle of Alabama. You're not sitting in the middle of Ohio. You're not sitting down in Texas where you haven't got a job, where you can't afford a house, where your kids aren't going forward, where everything seems to have moved on.
Which is precisely why you need Hillary Clinton in the White House.
Oh, I mean, because she hasn't been anywhere near the White House for decades, has she?
And they did a good job when they were there. Oh. Can I just say, Rachel, thank you for your discussion this week, because it's fantastic and so necessary. And all I hope is that on November the 8th, we put this Trump nightmare to bed, dear God, and that the Republicans change their selection process so that this can never happen again.
But what do we do if he
even
wins?
though we could...
What do we do?
I don't want to think about that. I do not want to think about that.
Well, you didn't want to think about Brexit either, but I mean, we got to... what do we do?
No, but this is worse than Brexit. What this could mean? Oh, goodness. Good God.
June, yes. What I want you to say at this point is, yes, let's make the selection process of presidential nominees different so that people cannot get 100%. Onto the slate, let alone near the White House,
100%.
Unless they're demonstrably sane, at the very least.
Sane and proven.
And they've worked for the party.
I agree.
They've held office.
100%.
Come on, these are small things.
Because why does it fall to you to tell Americans who should be their president?
Why not me?
The whole super-delegate system of the Democratic Party means that something like this cannot happen with the Democrats. That's why the Republicans have to change their selection process. And, Greg, something similar has happened with us, with Labour. You know, you have to make it... It's not everybody that needs to choose the leader.
It's those damn people having their say, isn't it?
Do you know,
that's what it is.
Well...
That's what
it is. People didn't elect Donald Trump. The people didn't make him the nominee.
So, Nick, would you run politics by referendum?
No, I don't think so. No, because
Yes,
we
you
elect
would.
them.
You
I mean,
love
it's
referendum.
big issues, I would, like such as Europe or something.
Jesus.
But other than that, hopefully they're half decent, most of them, at their job. We pay them, we elect them and pay them to do a job. They should bloody well be able to get on without keep asking us what the decisions
No,
are.
but you're the
Otherwise,
one
you may as
who's
well live in
just attacked
Switzerland.
Greg for the selection procedures of the FA. And
Yeah.
now you're not
Yeah,
attacking
no, I'm not
you
attacking-
for the
yeah.
rotten selection procedure of Donald Trump in
Yeah.
America.
But
That's about to take the world
if the people
into
were involved,
oblivion.
if the people were involved in selecting the England manager, they wouldn't have half the Herberts. I'm just going, don't go down this bloody list again and all the money we've wasted. £50 million.
I can tell you who.
You'd have had Brian Clough and...
In America, they
Yes,
actually did have
Brian
a
Clough.
Martin O'Neill.
Well, let's remember Brian Clough. You know, there was a famous phrase around Brian Clough.
Oh,
which
yes,
was,
son.
Cloughie likes a bung. And, you know, I remember making a film once and going to the very table where the bag of money went across to Brian Clough. So
Those were the days, Greg.
Yeah, with the days. Those
in
were
his sheepskin coat.
But do you know what I get confused about? Because whether you all agree or disagree with Donald Trump, I do think it's very undermining to everyone that actually agrees with him. There are a huge number of people that agree with him and his policy, and you might not, and you might not.
That's not
But
what we're saying,
no,
Michelle.
But what
we're saying
frustrates
he's
me-
a dangerous man.
No,
I've
in
got
your
nothing
view, in your
against
view, but
Donald
there are a
Trump's
huge number of
supporters.
people that sit there and the policies that
And
he
they
comes
will
out with and the
find out
statements
if
that
he
makes.
wins.
I know, but
They'll
it's-
find out.
it
Look
is
what
a bit-
happened with Bush.
But in lots of ways, there is this element of almost snobbery in some ways, because it's like,
No,
I saw it with, like, you see it with UKIP and a Nigel Farage, and you see it with Trump, because it's not the view that a lot of people hold. They put it down, and the problem when you do this,
isn't snobbery.
when you suppress people
good.
like this that have these views.
She's good. If only I was single. You're so good.
No, but when you suppress,
could
the-
I thought you were single.
but what's dangerous, I'm telling you now, what's dangerous is suppressing this level of view and making people that have that view, making them feel like they're disgusting or disgraceful or stupid.
That is
That's
not what
what's
anybody
dangerous.
here has said. We have said
Well
that
done.
Trump is disgraceful and disgusting,
In your
not
view.
his
In your-
supporters.
Absolutely,
In
in
your
your
view.
view. You know far better than these Americans.
That
right?
is not what I'm saying.
I think she
I
probably
respect
does,
all
yeah.
voters.
Anyway, let's put Trump to bed and let's hope after the US election we never have to see that man again. Anyway, first of all, let me preface what I'm about to say with I am not married and I don't have children. And oh, did I mention that I'm from a council estate in Walthamstow? Anyway, last week saw the unravelling of not one but 3 high-profile A-list unions. Zoe and Fatboy Slim, a.k.a. Norman, Liv and Naomi, and then, of course, the biggie, Brangelina. And we were all about just recovering from the conscious uncoupling of Chris and Gwen, and, of course, Jennifer and Ben. Now, let's be honest, celebrity marriages aren't exactly known for their longevity. But with 50% of all first marriages now ending in divorce, it seems this lack of staying power has seeped into wider society. As the child of divorced parents, I can attest that it is not the ideal scenario. I'm not suggesting that people stay in abusive or dangerous marriages. However, I do believe that divorce has become far too easy. We need to make it a little harder to throw in the towel, especially when there are kids involved. Whatever happened to for better or for worse? These two.
Oh, goodness. Your topic reminds me of something I heard the other day, which is a joke. Why is divorce so expensive?
Why?
Because it's worth it. I really don't agree with you. I speak as a married woman.
You're not divorced, are you?
No. I'm
Not that she knows
married.
it. What have you
I'm a
heard?
married woman, but
She
I
could well be by the
honestly-
end of the day.
I have been married a quarter of a century. And
How wonderful. Give her a round of applause for that. What's the secret,
I don't
Rachel?
think I think only those of us around the pledge panel who are married know how hard it is.
Okay.
And
Have you ever felt...
having kids is a breeze, and I think we're going to move on to that, how it actually isn't a breeze. But I actually think that these people, these public figures who go through a public divorce are to be applauded for their bravery, not criticised for throwing in the towel. It's really hard.
Applauded?
Divorce is, if you talk to anyone who's got
It's
divorced,
horrendous.
it's phenomenally traumatic. It sees the wholesale destruction of your entire... the superstructure of your
Existence, yeah.
life, your kids are unhappy, all they want is for you to stay together. It's pain all round. I mean, I'm a child of a divorced parents, married to a divorcee, so I know a bit about it. And I actually think that, in a way, the marriage is sort of broken, and because we all live so long. I mean, the average lifespan of a marriage is like 25 years, and sort of everyone gets bored and stale.
I suppose...
Hang on, you just said you've been married 25 years. What message are you sending out here?
I'm very stale, definitely. And every
I'll tell you what, I'm not saying it's stale, because I would never get back in the door.
So, obviously, Greg, you are divorced, and your second marriage... You've been divorced before, and your second marriage has lasted a very long time.
Well, the marriage... Together we've been a long time. We only got married 5 or 6 years ago.
Together,
We invited all the kids to the registry office.
Not another tax dodge.
Not another tax. So you've got no evidence again. Just use your
the triumph
prejudice.
of hope has
So
lasted.
what's your take on this?
My take, I don't think changing the rules makes any difference. People are either going to split up or they're not going to split up.
But
And
before, I mean, I don't...
Because nobody had anything.
No, but when
think?
I remember my mother saying to me, God, I'd have left your father at certain times if only I'd had any money.
Yeah.
Because in those days, as a woman, you couldn't get anything, you know. And now, actually, they had quite a happy marriage that lasted a very long time. All marriages, it's your point, all marriages go through tough times.
That's my point, though.
But
Is there any other?
yeah, but yes. Well, yours didn't last long enough to get to the tough bit, did it?
My heart
Go on.
goes out
Somebody
to...
who's been divorced twice.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
My heart goes out
To the children.
No, actually, well, of course, but to men and women watching this now who are going through a divorce.
Oh, yeah,
because
it's
their
awful.
lives have been changed
Yeah.
unbelievably. I remember a divorce lawyer once saying to me that divorce is like a train journey. You get on in a really, really bad place. You go through some horrific scenery. Sometimes you come to a nice place, you think it's all over, but then guess what? Till you turn another corner, it's really awful, but you finally get to a destination and you get off. But the impact, the heartache if you've got children. I think if you don't have children...
It's different, I agree.
I still wouldn't say it's easy, June, but it's easier.
Yeah.
The heartache of telling your children that mummy and daddy can't stay together, or your child, whatever it might be, is absolutely incalculable. You feel that you failed, because nobody gets married and has children thinking they're going to... Well, if you do, you need a head check. You really don't. The pain, the grief, the upset, it never actually leaves you. You still feel you failed on behalf of your children. So the idea that, honestly... believe me, having been through it, it is not easy. No. It's really not easy.
No.
I remember my mum saying to me years and years ago, when I first, was in my 20s, she said, if you are going to get married, you have to work at it. It's hard going. And I just believed it was... No, it was the fusion and love and excitement and the rest of it. She was dead right. Yes. I mean, you will not survive. Your marriage won't survive if you're not prepared to live through the tough times and try to work through them.
Yeah.
Was it you, Nick, who said, next time I'll just find someone I don't like and give them a house?
Yeah, but it's actually Jim Davidson. Yeah, but it is just buy a woman you hate. So find a woman you hate and buy her a house.
I suppose...
Michelle,
Michelle, what's your... Yeah, you divorced, Michelle?
Chance to be divorced would be a fine thing, seriously. But it makes me sad, actually, because I don't know, I think I was probably brought up on one too many Disney fairy tales. I have this vision in my head that this prince is going to come and sweep me up, I'm going to live happily ever after. And,
oh, my Lord.
And I know, and probably this is why I'm still single, but I sit and I believe in the Institute of Marriage, and I want that, and I want this family, that's going to stay together forever. But the older that I'm getting, I'm starting to really question how realistic is my mindset, because I feel like I've got a traditional mindset in a very non-traditional society.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is now, there is so much choice. So if I marry you and you annoy me, before, I might have to stay at home. But when you annoy me...
Michelle, he's taken.
But my point is, if I marry you and you annoy me, before, in the olden days, I'd have to put up with it and we'd have to work it through. Now, if you annoy me, my friend, I'll get my smartphone, I'll swipe this thing, I'll see him over there, I'll get involved with him.
Next weekend, I think I'm going to my 6th wedding of the summer, My 6th. And
are they silver splitters?
No, this one is a remarrier, but most of them have been young people getting married. And there's always a bit at the back of my head, which is the statistic you use. 50% of these don't survive.
So your parents split up.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of the health of my 2 children, the thing I give thanks for is my parents stayed together, and they had a really,
good
really...
marriage.
Oh, my God. And I think it's so great that you pass, and that again is the hurdle. Again, my heart goes out to people watching this who are getting divorced, who've got children. It's just... It's such
awful. I was 7 when my parents split up, and... Sorry.
Yeah, but there's no point. It's not... Changing the law so it's harder to get divorced will make no difference.
No, but I think it should be made easier.
No.
And I think lawyers should stay out of it.
Yeah,
I think you should be able to do it in Islam.
But
I divorce you.
I think there are so many people who get divorced whose marriages could have been saved. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
Well, that speaks to
I
what
have a
Michelle
few-
was saying.
Yeah.
They can
That
always,
is about
they can
supporting
always
council.
remarry.
Isn't always
June, they can always remarry.
But then look at the cost. Look
Yeah.
at the earth.
Why do you think I'm doing all this work?
Why do you think he's here?
I'm driving Greg home. That's every work I can get.
And he's not a very good driver either.
Anyway, right. You may remember this was the face that Nick pulled when Emma told us all she was menstruating back in the first series of The Pledge.
No, it's not your turn,
Well,
surely.
Yeah, it's my time of the month too. It's not really, but after the break I will be getting personal. Are you ready, Nick?
I think I'll have to be.
Very soon, I'll be injecting myself every day with hormones. For someone who has a needle phobia, this is no easy task. And the reason for these injections is simple. I want to be a mum. I find myself aged 36 and single. Recently, I had a fertility test, and the result broke my heart. I've been guilty of thinking that I could have it all, and I hadn't realised the impact that waiting so long may have. We say we live in an equal society, but the harsh fact is we don't. It will always be us girls that need to carry babies. Men seem to be more reluctant to settle down, and us girls want to enjoy life first too. The flaw in the plan? Our ticking biological clocks. It's time to include fertility education on the national curriculum for both boys and girls. We need to educate kids about the reality of fertility while they're still young enough to keep their options open.
Well, Michelle, as somebody who has injected themselves daily and have frozen my eggs, I highly recommend it. And I think actually the wonderful thing is it takes away the fear and the whole sort of issue around your biological clock. And you can kind of relax a bit, you know, talking about introducing fertility classes to the curriculum. One of my dear friends, and who was actually my doctor, is Dr. Geeta Nargood, and she lobbied Nicky Morgan at the time, and they are. Some schools in this country are actually doing that now. And I think it's really important because with the women's movement, the fact that we are now in the workforce, we are working longer than we've ever done before and in much larger numbers, we do need to educate women that, you know, the biological clock is real. And what Geeta proposes is that at 30, if you are not in a serious relationship, or if you are and you want to wait a bit, then most women should be encouraged to freeze their eggs. And it's actually not that bad, you know? You don't worry about those needles.
I'm longing
They're
to
quite
hear what
small.
Nick
I was just about to say, Nick, yeah.
Mine are in a
think
fridge
about this.
somewhere. They're in the fridge somewhere chilling.
You
What I-
love this sort of thing, don't you, Nick?
What
Yeah.
hang on. What I have to say is
I just need your turkey baster, Nick,
I,
to fertilise
look, I wish
them.
you nothing.
This is a bit-
a bit gamey, isn't it? I wish you nothing but success, and I
Thank
hope
you.
it goes well. And I'm obviously it's a bit of a tough road you're going to hoe. So you've got my love and best wishes on that.
Thank you.
Coming back
He's
to this
nice,
though,
really, isn't he?
No, but there's a
No,
but
that's
here.
what I lure you in.
Yeah,
That's
there's
what
a
Then, get
but.
on with it.
what would the fertility education classes actually comprise? What would they do? Walk me through a lesson.
Yeah, so I would want people to understand. So, for example, I don't think that some people, not all people, I don't think that some people actually even understand that as a woman, you're born with your egg collective. You're not going to, you know, you might make, you will make more and more sperm as a guy as you go through your life. As a woman,
You're not making any more
the
eggs.
eggs that you've got. I think that simple fact, not everybody knows.
Yeah.
And I will even put my hands up. I don't know where I was for this class at school. I
it
didn't
wasn't
even
there.
realise
The
that.
class wasn't
Yeah,
there.
I didn't even realise
Isn't
that.
there a danger that in some instances, and let's face it, we have a problem with underage pregnancies here. Some girls might be spooked by what they hear in this class,
No.
and they're going to rush out.
No.
Okay,
No.
hang on, this is an area that I want to be educated. don't
Yeah.
you?
So how I would address that is, number one, I would introduce those classes to year 10, so 14, 15-year-olds. So that's the kind of age that I would target. And the message that I would be giving them is, look, you know, it's not you need to go out and get, like, pregnant right this moment in time. You just need to be aware of various things. So, number one, you need to be aware that your chances when you get 30 plus, they will be reducing. Number two, there are things, lifestyle choices that you can make today which will affect those fertility chances going forward. So if you drink a lot, if you smoke a lot, if you're going to go out taking drugs, those kind of things, if you're stressed all the time, those kind of things will affect your fertility. So I'll use my example of me. I'm 36 and I got a test. And I don't know much sometimes, but what I do know is that I want to be a mum. There's no question, I want a family. And when I went and did my test, I remember sitting in the room with a fertility woman, and she was saying to me, when do you want children? And I was going, well, I want to do an Ironman. So that's that next year out. And after that, she was like, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 36. So she was like, right. And she was like, my advice to you is to just, if you can, get on with it. I was like, no. The Ironman is going to take up a year. And I'm having these conversations with her. And when I got my test results back, I cried. I was absolutely devastated because I didn't know.
What level, how low are you?
So you get measured by this thing called AMH. It's various...
Yeah, which is the hormone levels.
Yeah, so for an average of my age, like the worst case scenario would probably be, I don't know, like a 5.5, and it goes right up to like a 37 or 38.
And you want to be higher or lower than 5.5?
Higher.
Right. What are you?
7.
Right.
And the
Which
thing
for
is...
36 is low.
It's really bad. And also, like, you get your follicles counted. So my friends all had their test done. This is all getting a bit personal.
I want to count your follicles, Greg.
But you
I can do that now from the top of your head, don't
I use my follicles for something else.
But you get your follicles tested. So my friends, we all went and got a test done, and theirs was
you go
quite high.
collectively to this.
No, not together, but you have a scan. My follicle count was so low, it made me cry again.
But that
for a
doesn't
second
mean
time.
anything
I
either,
have a question.
though.
With
That
the
doesn't
benefit of
mean
hindsight,
anything.
you don't have to answer this question if it's too
I'll
personal.
definitely answer it.
No.
It's too personal. Go on.
Was there a chap you were with in your mid-20s, if you had your life over, that you should probably have taken a different view?
No, I think that my most recent partner is the closest that I came to having a family with. So I don't look back and think I wish I had them in 20s. What I do look back and think is I wish that I'd frozen my eggs much sooner. So I don't regret not having kids yet, but I wish I'd frozen sooner.
Yeah, then you have more eggs.
The culture of our society has changed. I mean, when you and I were young, you know, you got married quite young.
Yeah.
People began to wonder, you know, after a couple of years if you hadn't had a child,
Yeah,
as soon
what's
as,
going on?
what's happening? I mean, the average first mother now, I think, is over 30.
Yeah.
You know, so now I don't blame that. I think you have a great 10 years. You know, I think actually people have a great 10 years in those 20s, you know, where they become good into adulthood and had a great time. But there are implications for it. And you're right, someone should actually explain that to a lot of people.
And which is why what Geeta Nalgood says is we just need to make sure women are educated about this stuff.
And
Because
that's what
we
I think-
didn't think about it.
I think it probably costs quite a lot, and I don't think I'd like to see this available on the NHS. It probably costs
No.
about 20 grand or
No,
something.
it's 5.
5
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah, but 5 to 7.
But I actually took the trouble of looking at the national curriculum to see what is taught about
Fertility.
reproductive biology. And there's a section on fertilisation, but nothing about fertility. And actually, if you did pop it in there at an early point, rather than having old wives chanting tick-tock at Bridget Jones's, or like my mum did, saying to me, darling, it's all very well having a boyfriend and a career, but what about a family? You know, which she did at 26, and I was absolutely horrified because I thought she was an old
thank
hippie.
God she did.
I know,
Thank
and
God
then
she did.
literally the next thing I knew, I was married and pregnant. I can't remember which order. Anyway.
How old were you when you fell pregnant for the first time?
26.
Great.
Fell pregnant, that's an interesting
Lovely
Well,
expression.
it's terrible. It's like a fallen woman.
Yeah, that's right.
But Michelle, so there are some companies that are actually offering this to their employees, but actually the success
in
rate...
America,
but
Facebook
isn't it a
and
bit
Google.
of a mirage? Isn't the actual success rate of freezing eggs very
not
low?
really.
So what
Like-
we really need to do is ram home the message about biology, even though we've got 3 parent fetuses and babies being born, and it seems that anything is possible. In fact, you can't beat the clock.
Yes, we have to be honest with women. We do. We really do.
Yeah, so
We've been sold a lie, let's be honest.
Yeah, but it's not... But there was something almost at the beginning. I mean, it's not the fault of men, is it?
No.
Men do take evasive
mean,
action when they think they're going to be baby fathers.
Let's flip this for posterity that you all agree that it's not the fault.
It's not the fault of men, it's just life.
It's
But
just
men
life.
want children later and later and later, that's true. But back to your point about the companies, lots of companies like Facebook and Apple and stuff, they're offering it as a perk, and they've been absolutely,
To freeze their employees' eggs?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they've been
So
absolutely
that they can still
slaughtered.
work.
But what happens if you then leave one of these companies?
Well, you keep them.
Oh, so they do it?
They own your eggs.
No,
You have to pay an annual...
Yeah, the company
They
pays.
can't,
Even when you don't
they
want
can't breed without you.
Once you leave,
So
I
you'd have to
presume,
pick up the
mhm.
child.
But I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that the cost would be a barrier to a 20-something-year-old girl
Do you
being
mind
able to do
asking
that.
5 to 7 grand.
Yeah, I mean, but that's for multi-cycle, so you can get it for about, I don't know, 3 to 3,500 for
And
just
then
a
an
single
annual
site.
fee
And then,
for them to
I
be
don't know,
obviously
200-300
carefully-
quid, to store them, essentially per annum. But if you think about it, 1 in 6 couples actually struggle to conceive. So that's 1 in 6 couples at the moment. And I just think if you're educating people properly about the fertility at the beginning, if you're offering, I'd even go as far as saying, actually, offer fertility tests. So when, like, a lady gets a smear test, offer them a fertility test, and then you're going to stop those problems later down the line.
Did you not have children in your 20s because you didn't meet the right man?
No, I didn't want children in my 20s.
I didn't want them. No, not in my 20s. No. I was having a great time. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, and that's fine, but just make sure that people understand the ramifications of that so you can actually be freezing your eggs earlier than what I've been trying to do it.
It's interesting about being in your 20s because before we move on, we've been talking a little about this and the subject of women getting a little bit older. Rachel, we spotted a comment in one of the newspapers. When is Rachel Johnson going to pose for Playboy Seniors edition?
There is
Rachel. Well?
Is that Playboy Seniors or Playboy?
Well, I don't know. Ask Greg.
That's a young woman.
If she's
I don't know that.
If she's senior.
Well, they count as senior, but I don't know.
If she's senior, I'm a Dutchman.
Well, that would be an interesting photo shoot if you are, wouldn't it? I'd definitely pay to see that.
So, Rachel,
is there any chance?
Do it?
Oh, well, every man has his price, as we know from the FA football, as we know from Sam Allardyce.
OK. I'm up next, and through gritted teeth, I'll be arguing it's time Nigel Farage got the recognition he deserves. With Jeremy Corbyn now likely to lead Labour into the next general election, I think the party will struggle to get anywhere near the 30% of the vote they got in 2015. So does that mean a Tory government for the next decade is inevitable? Under our crazy electoral system, the answer is probably yes. Just consider for a moment one single example from last year. Nigel Farage's UKIP got 3.8 million votes. That's 12% of the vote, and yet they only got 1 seat in Parliament. Ed Miliband's Labour, on the other hand, got 9.3 million votes, despite the bacon sandwich, and that's 30%, roughly 2.5 times UKIP, and yet they got 232 seats. Our first past-the-post electoral system has had it. It worked when British politics was dominated by 2 parties. Go back to 1951, 97% either voted Labour or Tory. But those days are long past, and the system now looks both ridiculous and anti-democratic. It's no wonder people are disillusioned with politics. It's time for change. It's time for proportional representation.
It would probably be helpful, Greg, for viewers, explain how PR, proportional representation, actually works.
Well, there's different systems, and I think you need a group, some sort of committee, something to analyse which one you want to adopt. But basically, you can still have constituencies, but then you say, OK, they only got 1 constituency, but actually they got 7% of the votes, so they're entitled to this number of extra members of Parliament. I mean, the problem with the system is, you know, we are getting to the stage where you're going to get 30 or just over 30% and you're still going to have a majority, and that's ridiculous.
But for years we have operated on first past the post. I think your point is very well made, how it's changed from the 50s to where we find ourselves now, not least with the slew of parties. And clearly it was palpably wrong for UKIP to be so underrepresented. But isn't this effectively just a manifesto for muddle?
No, I think it's a manifesto for coalitions. There's no doubt about that. Under our present system, it would be coalition. But I happen to think the last coalition government was rather good. I think it's better than the current Tory government. In the end, you're saying to people, what's the point of voting if actually I can't in any way, because I don't happen to support the candidate who's likely to win in our safe seat, I have no.
So you're a Labour supporter in Sevenoaks, right? So you know they'll vote blue if it's a donkey standing in Sevenoaks. So with no respect to Michael Fallon, who happens to be the Conservative MP for Sevenoaks. That would actually mean that would mean that a Labour supporter in Sevenoaks, his or her vote would count then.
Yes.
So how would you then choose the MP for Sevenoaks?
No, the MP was for 7/8. Under one system, under the top-up system, the MP for 7/8 would get elected.
So Fallon steps forward.
But then you'd have another list of people who were chosen by the party.
This will take months,
Yeah.
right?
Who's in charge of this? John Shelton?
It can be done. It's done. We do it in the European elections.
Well, I don't know that we necessarily.
If you look at every change in recent years, I mean, we've introduced the London Assembly.
Yep.
We've introduced the Scottish government. We've introduced the Welsh government. They're all on PR.
Yeah.
Because it's a fairer system. And now the first past the post system, you could argue worked for many years.
And it served us well.
But it served us well. But as the votes for the two main parties disappear, and as more people want to come into politics of different parties and different persuasions, it doesn't work anymore.
No, but the only votes disappearing are the votes for Labour at the moment. So,
well, the Labour Party only got the last election got 30%. One before 29%.
Well, let's see what happens in the next election.
But if you take the Tories, they got 36%, 36 point something percent of the vote, and got a majority.
Well,
a very slim one at that.
Let's see. The team have actually applied your logic. Let's look at a couple of illustrations here. This is, as you rightly said earlier, Greg, this is the general election result from 2015, and there we see the numbers. Conservatives 331, Labour 232, and as you pointed out, UKIP rather unfairly, some might argue, 1. So applying one of the proportional representation system used across much of Europe, there are many, as you rightly said, but this is what we would come up with using your system. So here we are, you can quite clearly see Conservatives 242, Labour 208, UKIP 80, Lib Dems 47, and so on and so forth. So UKIP are the kingmakers. Now, for some people, that will put a shiver down their spine. I personally think it might be quite helpful.
Yes, in those circumstances, they might well be the kingmakers. And you might not like it politically, or we might not like it politically. It's not the point. It's just about democracy. And in the end, you've got to say, what the referendum, I thought, showed was that actually, when people think their vote matters,
counts. They come
turn
out and vote.
Yeah, because the last time they had an opportunity, and then I'll stop with all the figures, because honestly, I'm just spewing figures like I'm ill here, but the last time people get involved with the AV, the alternate voting system, what was it? 41% of people. Do you think people care, Greg?
No, it's not that they don't care, it's because they don't understand.
Okay.
So I would come... It happens very rarely, Greg, but on this occasion I agree with you. I know, I don't know what's going on, and I'm going to have a lie down when I get back.
I think I agree with you about egg fertility.
That's hormones. But I think it's outrageous, actually, that UKIP can get 4 million votes and have just one seat. If PR was positioned across that, they would have had 83 seats if that was working there and then. Now, the problem is with the AV vote that we had, people don't understand it. No. And I would even say now, even when we talk about proportional representation, single transferable votes, party line lists, people don't get it. It's confusing. But now that people understand, and so when you had this vote in 2011 or wherever it was, if you now use the example of UKIP and use that as an example, is that fair that 4 million people can have a view, agree with it or disagree with it, I don't care, but you can have a view and only get one seat off the back of 4 million? That's disgraceful. And now people would understand that actually, because of that, the system needs to change. Yeah. One of the flaws with, and you mentioned Belgium earlier on, and I was looking into this, Belgium, they have PR, and in their 2010 elections, it took them 541 days to form a coalition. Oh, so that's, what, 18 months?
That's 20 times the length of Sam Allardyce.
Yes, that's 18 months that that place was essentially, like, ungoverned because they couldn't get their act together. So that's one of the flaws.
Well, hang on, you're saying it was ungoverned. Were there big crises in Belgium?
No, they just didn't have a government.
They just didn't have a government. Actually, it carried on running perfectly happily.
No, is that what you're advocating?
No, I genuinely...
What chance have you got of PR when... Wasn't there a referendum against it already?
Whoever is in government...
Won't give it up.
No, they won't do it.
Right? I mean, I remember...
Turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
No. They want their seats in the back of the Jaguar, the bums in the back of the Jaguar. That's what they want. But actually, there's a large enough... Well, maybe it's not a Jaguar in your brother's case, but... I mean,
it's a Range Rover.
It's a Range Rover, but it hasn't
Armoured, for very good reason.
Has it still got that pledge on the side, you know, the one that says...
Is it 350 million? That one.
I'd like him to keep that on his car, just so he can remind people what he said. This is getting a bit... This is getting unfair.
Will we ever get PR, Greg?
Will we ever get PR? Yes, because at some stage... I mean, you should have had it from... the coalition government. I mean, the coalition government did have...
They gave up on trying to get PR,
the coalition government did have the support of more than 50% of the voters, because more than 50% voted either Liberal or Tory, and they came together. Yeah. Now, I think that will happen. Again, there will be a moment, actually, when everybody against...
with Nick Clegg.
No, What will
Did he?
happen? No, Cameron did. No, he agreed to have a referendum on the alternative vote
AV.
system.
He did AV.
But what you really
Nobody
need...
cared.
But
Well,
at
AV's
some
not
stage,
PR
you're going
either.
to see a situation where it looks ridiculous, and it could happen in the next election, that the Tories get 31, 32% and still have a
Still
majority.
have a majority.
Do you think more people would vote? Do you think young people would, particularly young
Yes.
people,
Yes, they
if they
definitely
thought their
would.
vote
I
would
don't
count?
know.
If they thought they could get Green MPs,
No,
they
do.
would.
So this-
They would definitely vote.
If you knew that actually coming out will make a difference, Parliament will represent you and what this country looks like, and it will be as diverse as the people's views that live in the country, you would vote.
Yeah, my final line is look at what happened in Scotland. You know, the Scotch Nats only got 50% of the vote, and yet they took all bar 3 of the seats. It's ridiculous.
No, that system clearly can't work. It is just the complexity, and we're not necessarily that swift at sorting everything out. And I just think having everything in deadlock wouldn't be that healthy.
Well, people will make those arrangements before the election. Won't they? I think it will. But anyway, I think
not having a government might work
it's
quite
about
well.
it's about fairness in the end, and actually this system isn't fair.
Let's campaign and make it happen.
All right.
Me and you, Greg.
Right.
We'll get a campaign book.
Well, I said I'd wear my black jacket if Corbyn won the Labour Party leadership vote. Here I am. I'm a man of my word. And I'm probably not the only one in mourning.
Smith walks wary down the street with his holding way down low. Ain't no sound but the sound of defeat. The electorate's ready to vote. Are you ready? Hey, are you ready for this? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Into the boxes, the ballots slip to the sound of the beat. Yeah. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one gone, another one gone, another one bites the dust. Hey, I'm gonna get you too. Another one bites the dust.
Okay, well.
give it to
Is
the
there
man.
anyone? Do any of you believe that actually the Labour vote will go up in the next election?
No way.
Absolutely not.
Did anyone else notice that Jeremy Corbyn's only got one tie, and it's the same one that John McDonnell's got?
Yeah, they share.
Yes.
Unbelievable. He's got one tie.
But he has a lot of people that love him and love him passionately.
Let's keep
They
the
do.
red flag
Not
flying
enough,
here.
Not my own brothers.
Not enough
I
to
will
win
say.
an election, unfortunately.
Well, pretty bad news for all round then. Do we all think that? Yeah, all right. Well, that's it from us. Head to our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for all the fallout. See you next time.